There are many, many different ways information could seep or leak, and it's the assurance by obviously the Vatican and the security within the Vatican to make sure that doesn't happen. When many people hear about the Vatican Guard and they hear about the security that is within the Vatican, many people only see what the tourists will see, which is the very ceremonial dress and parade and pomp and circumstance that is attached to that. However, behind that pomp and circumstance and that public persona, there is a highly capable, very well trained, and extremely well resourced law enforcement and intelligence, counterintelligence operation. So you have individuals that are not only supported by the Italian government, but they in themselves, in isolation, are incredibly resilient, well-trained, and well-armed at dealing and repelling potential threats. There's going to be, for something as serious as this congregation of cardinals who are going to be deciding on something as important as who the new pope is going to be, inevitably they have to adjust their protocols and security measures in line with the existing and current threats that they could potentially face. And there are a number or wide spectrum of risks that could be impacting, ranging from not only sort of human intelligence gathering by members of the press who are intrigued, but also by potential hostile forces. And these could be from individuals that are opposed to the Christian or Catholic Church and may wish to cause disruption or to interfere with the process in some shape or form. So as a direct result, these cardinals will be held in what we would call a white box scenario, where communications are going to be limited, their communications to the outside world will be limited, whether that be by mobile phone or by computer for that matter, or laptop. Wi-Fi will be restricted, and they will be utilizing various technologies which we quite often will see in the commercial world and certainly in the governmental world, including cell phone blockers, so that even if, for example, the cell phones of the cardinals have not been confiscated or taken off them, this is a means of basically disabling any ability for them to make or receive telephone calls whilst they're congregated. One of the things which one has to consider is that the cardinals themselves would hopefully be entrusted to maintain and keep the confidentiality behind this process intact. However, there are foreign agents, foreign parties, and actors who potentially could utilize their cell phones as a means to listen or eavesdrop on communications and conversations that will be held. So the Vatican will not be taking any short measures in terms of preventing any kind of what we would call electronic espionage or eavesdropping that could be utilized contributing through their phones. And we've seen certainly the ability through certain softwares like Pegasus, for example, where remotely the threat can trigger or activate both the camera and also the microphone within the device to be able to record or to have open and maintain an open live line so that they can be eavesdropping on conversations without the owner of the phone necessarily knowing that's taking place. As we've seen, certainly in the last couple of years, if you like, the landscape of the battleground, especially in the Ukraine conflict, has shown that drones can be used not only for a surveillance capacity, but also for delivering potentially dangerous packages, whether they be improvised explosive devices, grenades, or other munitions. So where we've seen quite recently was during the funeral arrangements and ceremonies for the recently departed Pope, we saw certainly members of the police force and certainly the Vatican Guard utilizing technology which would allow them to inert a drone. And how this will work will be to actually interfere with the signal between the drone itself and the person controlling it, the person that is working on the same wavelength or communications band with that drone and powering and controlling and monitoring it. So this technology we're seeing more and more commonly being utilized, but where this obviously is kind of visible, there's not only in terms of showing the capability and the state-of-the-art technology that is being utilized, but also as a very clear deterrent to any parties who might be considering exploiting that as a platform of attack. The cardinals would have been prepared in advance as to what to anticipate when they were to congregate at the Vatican, and obviously begin this ages-old and centuries-old tradition of deciding on who the successor pope will be. And they will have been briefed accordingly as to what they could bring with them, how they could expect to inhabit the hotel which is set up for them, which is a five-star hotel with many luxurious, amenities available to them. But they will be aware that they will be in isolation from their families, from their friends, from their work colleagues in many regards until that process is ended, because it is so critical that the confidentiality and secrecy that is maintained behind it and the processes that are applied remain so.